name is Amy. I am a registered dietitian. I am with Swerve. We are an exhibitor. Obviously, I'm also a speaker today. Um, and I'm just going to check that I'm live. If everyone can just say hello, just let me know. Chat a little hello. And I'm just checking to make sure that we are good. All right. Okay, good. Okay, you guys can see me. Yay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for your patience. We are going to go ahead and get started. Hello, Jennifer. All right. So like I said, my name is Amy. I am a registered dietitian. I'm a Swerve sweetener. And today we're going to be talking about all those different sugar replacements that are out there. So it can be super confusing to know, which ones are a good fit for you. What should I use this one in? What should I use that one in? So we are just going to get into the nitty gritty of all of those today. And yeah, hopefully it'll give you some insight into choosing, what's a good option for you. So just to give you a little bit of background information about me, my name is Amy. Like I said, I'm a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and I work for Swerve Sweetener. So, I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, obviously big food city, love food. I also love to bake. I love sweets. I love all those, traditions that we like to make at holidays and so on. So, I think like many of you, I also have had a little bit of a health journey. I kind of started understanding, wow, it really makes a huge difference how you feel, how you look when you eat well, when you eat, nourishing, healthy meals. So, that's kind of what led me into pursuing a degree in nutrition. But at the same time, I still loved my food, my gumbo, my jambalaya, the Mississippi mud pie, the Italian Christmas cookies every year. And so really what I've always done as a dietitian is try to bridge that gap between traditions, delicious food, but also food that's good for you and that also makes you feel good. So I'm so lucky that I'm able to do that at Swerve, is helping people kind of reach their health goals while still enjoying the foods that they love. So we're going to get into that today. Definitely from a sweetener perspective, definitely from a dessert baking perspective. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I am just going to click that, and it's going to be full screen because I'm going to make it presentation mode. But I will pause throughout the presentation to stop for questions at kind of some like big parts, and then I'll hopefully have some time at the end for questions as well. So this is a presentation, the Sweet Facts, Understanding Sugar Alternatives. So this is an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So why is it important to avoid sugar in the first place? And then we're going to get into all these different categories of sugar substitutes. So artificial sweeteners, high intensity natural sweeteners, sugar alcohols, some newer options that you may not have heard of yet, some unrefined sweeteners that do contain sugar, and then we'll talk about Swerve as well. So let's talk about sugar. This is a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be talking about when it comes to sugar. What are the current recommendations? How much should we actually be eating, or how little should we actually be eating is what I should really say. Where is it found? Where is it hidden? And then why blood sugar control is so important. And then, of course, we'll cover all those different options that you can replace sugar with. So how much should we actually be eating? So the USDA recommends actually no more than 6% of calories come from sugar. This is a recent reduction with the new 2020 guidelines. It was actually 10% before. Based on current evidence, newer emerging evidence, they decided to lower it. So if you put that into perspective, that's only about 30 grams of sugar per day if you eat 2,000 calories. If you eat less, which most women eat, typically around 1,500 calories a day, that would be even less. So 30 grams of sugar is only 2 tablespoons of sugar. That's not a lot of sugar at all. There's 39 grams of sugar in 1 can of Coke. So obviously, that's really not a large amount of sugar at all. And then if you look at the World Health Organization, they actually recommend only 5% of energy come from sugar. So that's actually 25 grams a day. So it's really not a lot of sugar at all, guys. And that's based on, scientific evidence of why is it important to avoid it. We'll get into that in the next slide. But okay, so where is sugar found? Obviously, it's going to be in the places that you think of, like desserts, cakes, candy, all of things like that. But it also is found in some kind of unexpected places. So things like beverages, soft drinks are the #1 contributor of sugar intake in the United States. So obviously we know it's in soft drinks, but even drinks that like seem healthy, like maybe like a sweetened matcha that comes in a bottle, or like some natural iced tea, things like that, even healthy beverages, a lot of them are sweetened with sugar. Sauces are another huge culprit. So any sort of sweet sauce or barbecue sauce, ketchup, all of those contain added sugar. Dressings, you think you're doing good eating a salad, and you know what? That raspberry vinaigrette has 20 grams of sugar per tablespoon. It's insane. That's a lot. It may not be that much, but you can find a lot of those sweeter salad dressings have a lot of sugar. Yogurts, things like a sweetened strawberry yogurt may have up to 10 grams of added sugar, breads. And then, since most of us are gluten-free here, a lot of gluten-free desserts actually have more sugar than regular desserts because they are trying to make up for maybe some off-putting flours that they're using. Sugar also can play a little bit of a functional, structural role in baked goods. And so with gluten-free desserts, they don't have that gluten holding it together. So sugar actually can kind of compensate there. So just read your labels if you're, trying to looking to indulge in a little like gluten-free cupcake or something like that. You definitely want to make sure that you're checking those sugar labels. Okay, so to put this into perspective, in the early 1800s, we had about 2 pounds of sugar per year for the entire year. And then in the 1970s, we were averaging about 123 pounds of sugar per year. And now we are looking at about 152 pounds of sugar per year. And that's an average of almost 3 pounds per week. So that's insane. Obviously, we are not following these recommendations for sugar consumption. We are going way over it. And then one thing also I want to point out, just to conclude this slide, these recommendations are for added sugar. So this is sugar that's been added to foods or that's added to your baked goods. It's not the sugar that's naturally occurring in fruits and vegetables and dairy products. That's fine because there are other nutrition, there are other, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that we get from those foods that, we don't really need to worry about the sugar in those foods because they're nutritious. We're getting fiber. So really, this is for added sugar. So I just want to be, clear and make that distinction for y'all. Okay, so why is it important to limit sugar in the first place? So basically, we have so many educational studies, well documented, saying that excess sugar consumption has been linked to so many really bad diseases that we just want to really try to avoid. So obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers, tooth decay, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I mean, there are just loads and loads of studies that demonstrate that sugar is just directly correlated to all of these really, really poor lifestyle diseases. So also, when you look at the nutrient density of a food, and nutrient density is a measure of nutrition per, a specific amount of weight of food. So say I have 3 ounces of spinach. Well, this 3 ounces of spinach is going to be very low in calories, so very low in energy, but it's very high in nutrition. You're going to get some wonderful, folate, vitamin C. You're going to get some chlorophyll, some antioxidants from those leafy greens, all in a very small amount of calories. But then you look at 3 ounces of sugar, well, you're going to get a lot of calories from that 3 ounce serving size of sugar and hardly any, you're going to get no nutrition at all. So the nutrient density of foods that are high in added sugar is typically very low. So think like breakfast cereals, muffins, pastries, things like that. You're not getting a lot of nutrition from those foods. Whereas if you look at fruits, vegetables, spinach, cauliflower, broccoli, all of those are going to be very high in nutrition, but have no added sugar at all. So, you really want to think if you are really trying to like get on your nutrition game and, thinking about what can I get my most, bang for my buck when it comes to what I'm eating and the nutrient density of those foods, typically they're not going to have a lot of added sugar. So, all right, my slide is not fully showing. Okay, let's see. Can you guys see this slide? I just want to make sure. Okay, I can only see part of your screen. Can you guys see it now if I just X out of the full screen mode? Let's see. Hey guys. Okay. Let me know in the chat if this is better. And then I'll just leave it like this. And thank you guys so much for being patient. Oh, that zoomed in a lot. Okay, thank y'all so much for being patient. Okay, yes, this is better. Okay, well, we'll just go with this. Okay, awesome. All right, thank y'all so much for that feedback. Okay, so we are good now with our screen, and we have a little bit of understanding why sugar is important to limit. So let's also talk about, we talked about, yes, we want to have a nutritious diet. We want to avoid our risk of lifestyle diseases. But, that might kind of seem like down the line. Why is it important to limit sugar on a day-to-day basis? Well, sugar intake, the amount of added sugar, the amount of refined carbohydrates that you're eating, those are going to affect your blood glucose levels that can affect your energy, mood, and overall vitality on a day-to-day basis. So the sooner you stop eating foods that are high in added sugar, high in refined carbohydrates, which basically turn right into sugar, you're going to feel way better because you're going to have better blood sugar control. So let's go to the next slide, and I'm just going to check the chat, make sure. Okay, yeah, everybody can see us. Okay, great. So this is the blood sugar roller coaster. This is a ride that you do not want to be on because you typically are not just really not going to feel very good whenever you are eating in a way that's going to cause this type of reaction in your blood sugar. So let's say, looking at this chart, the black solid line is your blood sugar level, and then that orange dotted line is your insulin levels. So let's say you had a very high carb breakfast, bowl of, sugary cereal with some skim milk, bagel, something like that. Well, that's a lot of carbs, that's a lot of sugar, that's going to make your blood sugar rise up pretty quick. It's going to look like a mountain peak. So it's going to cause a sharp rise in your blood sugar. It also is going to cause your insulin to increase because your insulin is a hormone that is secreted by your pancreas whenever you have anything that contains carbs or sugar. And insulin does this job of, it takes the sugar that's in your blood and it shuttles them into your cells to be used for energy. Now that's fine, normal, that's a normal bodily function. The problem really happens when you're having too much sugar too often over time. So that's what this is kind of depicting. So since you had that high carb, kind of sugary breakfast, it's going to cause a lot of insulin to be secreted, which is going to quickly kind of bring that blood sugar level back down, get that sugar in the cells, and then you're kind of like at that baseline again. And so you get pretty hungry pretty quickly after that because your blood sugar is low again. You may be feeling a little bit irritable, a little bit cranky, a little bit of hangryness going on. And you just biologically, since we're hardwired to reach for sugar when you need a quick jolt of energy, you're going to reach for another sugary snack. That might be like a donut or a candy bar or something like that. Again, this is going to cause your blood sugar to rise again. And it's going to cause even more insulin to be secreted because it's, again, dealing with a lot of sugar in your blood and it's got to do its job, get it back down. Well, since insulin is a hormone, it slowly modulates down. Your insulin levels may be high for anywhere from like 3 to 6 hours, whereas blood sugar is like a quicker turnaround time. It's like more, it's more depending on what you eat, maybe like 1 to 3 hours. So your insulin was already high from your high sugar breakfast, and then you secrete more insulin because you just had another sugary snack. And so this is going to cause a blood sugar crash. And that's where you see that all the way, that crash in the middle of the chart there. And so let's say this is like lunchtime and you're starving, you're shaking, you just cannot wait to eat. You order a big old like sandwich. If you're in New Orleans like me, you may order a po' boy with 2 huge pieces of fluffy bread, lots of carbs. They're going to quickly turn into sugar. And, it's just an ongoing cycle. So, long term, I mean, obviously, day to day, this is going to make you not feel great. Long term, it can cause even more complications. So, this is very taxing on your pancreas. This is the organ that secretes that insulin. Over time, your pancreas may start to not work as well as it was before, because it's just constantly being taxed to secrete more and more and more insulin. Over time, also, your cells may not respond to insulin as well. So insulin's going to be knocking on the door of the cells and say, hey, I need to put the sugar in. And it's like, oh, you know what? Insulin's here again. I'm over her. So long story short, all of this blood sugar roller coaster, it's going to lead to elevated blood sugar levels long term. And of course, that's going to lead to things like prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, inflammation, weight gain. All of these things are just going to contribute long term to those diseases that we talked about in the last slide. And you're also going to feel like crap on a day-to-day level. So this is why it's so important to eat healthy, balanced meals that have a good source of whole grain carbs that aren't going to cause your blood sugar to skyrocket like this. So not meals that are high in added sugar, but healthy carbs. And then of course, a good source of healthy fat and protein as well. So I'm going to check the chat and see if you guys have any questions about this. I know probably a lot of you are familiar with this concept of eating healthy, balanced meals, keeping your blood sugar in check. You want it to be small, nice little waves rather than just these peaks and valleys of your blood sugar. And when your blood sugar is in control, when it's kind of like not in these crazy ranges, you feel better, you can go longer without eating, so you're more focused, you feel more energized. And it's just an overall better feeling. You have more energy. That's a type of sustained energy throughout the day rather than this like boost after your quick sugar fix and then, drop off later on. So I don't see any questions coming in for right now. So I'm going to continue with the slides. And now we're going to get into the sweeteners, all the different alternatives out there. So we kind of talked about why it's important to have a diet that is healthy, balanced, and doesn't have a ton of added sugar in it. And now we're going to talk about, okay, we all like our sweets. Like I said before, I love to bake. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. We have a lot of food traditions here. So I don't want to, completely give up my sweet things and my desserts. So what alternatives are out there? So you're making this understandable. Okay, great. I'm so excited. I'm so happy to hear that was helpful and easy to understand. Good. Okay, so we are going to get into the alternatives now. So this is an overview about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about artificial sweeteners. We're going to talk about natural sweeteners, some sugar alcohols, which is what Swerve is made from, and then also some newer options, and then those unrefined sweeteners that do contain sugar as well. So artificial sweeteners. Now, this is probably one of the most controversial groups of sweeteners out there. They have been, studied for such a long time, really probably since for 50 to 70 years at this point. So a ton of research behind these, but we still can't seem to find a definitive answer on if they're a good option or not. So let's look at the facts. So we've got sucralose, aspartame, and saccharin. Those are the chemical names of the pinks, the yellows, the blues, we like to call them. I'm sure you guys are familiar with these. But they're true, they're artificial sweeteners. They are made in a lab. They are not found in nature. They're chemical compounds that we just scientists developed a few years ago as, sweet tasting compounds that have 0 calories. So they're typically 0 calories, or they're used in such small amounts that they're not going to actually contribute any calories. They're widely used in beverages as a tabletop sweetener. So, sweetening coffee, tea, drinks, things like that. You'll also see these in a lot of like protein powders, maybe some protein bars, just anything that, would need to have some sweetness, but no calories. So they're considered high intensity sweeteners. So they are extremely sweet. They can be, 300 to 600 times sweeter than sugar. So very intense, sweetness level here. And then, if you look at the kind of pros and cons, like what are they used for? What can we kind of use these for? What do we need to be weary of with these? So they are approved by the FDA. They're on the generally recognized as safe list. We have evidence that it can help prevent cavities because they don't have sugar. It can maybe even be helpful for weight loss. It can be helpful to manage diabetes if you're really watching your blood sugar. And they're really widely available and they're pretty inexpensive. So those are kind of the pros of why you would want to use these. But the cons, honestly, it just comes down to the research. There's a lot of really kind of questionable research with these. So for every study that says, oh, it may help with diabetes, there's another study that says, these actually might increase your risk of diabetes. So it's kind of hard to know. There also are some studies out there that say it can contribute to weight gain, it can contribute to metabolic syndrome. And then if you're thinking about how sweet these are, they actually can desensitize your taste buds. So if you're using these on a day-to-day basis and increasing your consumption over time, it really is going to not make your palate as sensitive to the subtle sweetness and things like fruit and vegetables, and may even cause you to kind of have more things that are artificially sweetened and less of the things that we should be eating, like the fruits, the vegetables with the subtle sweetness. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are, kind of experimenting with these. There's also some studies out there that say artificial sweeteners can even increase your sweet cravings and even become a little bit addictive. So, I mean, that's kind of scary, right? Like you don't want to have to rely on these or any other food or substance to kind of get you through. And then there's also some kind of newer emerging research saying that artificial sweeteners can negatively impact your gut microbiome, which we know is very intricately involved with a lot of different bodily processes, including, blood sugar regulation and insulin. So super important, especially if you're using these in order to better control, diabetes or your blood sugar. It's kind of counterintuitive there. So again, there's a lot of research out there. We still can't seem to draw conclusions on whether these are like a good option or not. I say, if you use them in moderation, if you like them, if you don't have any negative side effects, go for it. But, honestly, there are better options out there. There are natural options out there. So, yeah, totally up to you. You are in charge of your own health, of course, and what you put in your body. But let's move on and talk about some other options. Let's see, artificial sweeteners. Yeah, make you crave more sweet stuff. Yeah, so we definitely touched on that. And sounds like you've had that experience. So moving on to some other high intensity natural sweeteners. So these also are going to be a lot sweeter than sugar, but they're naturally derived and made. So stevia is a popular natural sweetener. It's actually used in a ton of food and beverages now at this point. You can also buy it as a standalone sweetener. It doesn't have any calories. It comes from the leaves of the stevia plant. So natural plant-based sweetener, which we love. That's great. But it can be 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. It has a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. Some people detect this, some people don't. It's actually a genetic trait if you taste this bitter aftertaste, but it affects like 80% of the population. So kind of a large percent of the population that gets a little bit of that bitter aftertaste. But if you like it, great. It's a natural sweetener. Yeah, so like I said before, it's used a lot in drinks and mixes and things of that nature. But you really gotta read your labels with these, because often with these high intensity sweeteners, they're often blended with some sort of carrier. So that can be dextrose or maltodextrin. Those are all basically like simple sugar starches that are mixed with these high intensity sweeteners to increase the bulk of the sweetening product. So just make sure you read your labels, flip over that label, read the ingredients panel, and make sure that it's not being mixed with, an ingredient that you're trying to avoid. And then also monk fruits. This is another high intensity natural sweetener. It comes from China. Its original name is the Lohan guo plant. And basically it's a type of fruit that has this really sweet substance in it, and that's what they excrete out of the fruit to make the powdered monk fruit or liquid monk fruit. Again, no calories. It can be 150 times sweeter than sugar, so not quite as sweet as stevia. Has a little bit of an aftertaste. Again, I think it's not as bad as the stevia aftertaste. It's a little bit of a licorice flavor, but it's very subtle. There also is some interesting research that's saying it may have some antioxidant properties, which is pretty cool. But just keep in mind that this plant does originate in China. So if that's something, if you're one of those people that avoids products from China, just be aware of that. And again, since it's such a high intensity sweetener, it's often blended with something like dextrose or maltodextrin. There's another brand out there that mixes it with erythritol, which we'll talk about later. But, typically there may be some sort of carrier. So make sure if you just want the monk fruit, just want the stevia, read your labels, make sure it's not mixed with anything else. And then we have blends as well. So there are lots of different brands out there that's a blend of one of these high intensity natural sweeteners and then other stuff. So main example, probably everyone's heard of this, is Truvia. So Truvia is erythritol plus stevia plus some natural flavor. Again, it is calorie and sugar-free. It's about twice as sweet as sugar, so you definitely want to keep that in mind when baking. And some people do get a little bit of a bitter aftertaste with Truvia as well. And then just generally with all of these, you kind of have to look at, since they're such high intensity sweeteners, it's really going to be tough to use these in baking, especially if a recipe is calling for like a half a cup of sugar. I mean, how much do you use? Like, it can be very confusing. You don't know how much to use. Obviously, it's going to affect the overall volume of your baked good. So think if, you were making a cake and it calls for a cup of sugar, well, that may loosely translate to like a tablespoon of stevia. Well, that's like maybe like a 25% reduction in the overall, volume of your cake. And so it's just not going to turn out the same. And, if you're prepared for that and that's okay with you, that's fine. But just wanted you guys to be aware that these high intensity sweeteners are just not ideal for baking. All right, I'm going to pause again. I think do you know about Inulin? Just purchase some organic stevia, but the first ingredient shows up as Inulin. So Inulin is actually a type of fiber. Now it makes sense again that this is mixed with stevia because it's one of those high intensity sweeteners that typically needs to be mixed with something in order to get it to a higher bulk or a higher volume of the overall sweetener. So Inulin is it is a fiber, so it's typically it's a type of carbohydrate. It doesn't affect blood sugar, so that's fine if that's what you're looking to use it for. It's like a lower calorie, lower carb, non-glycemic sweetener. But yeah, it's just adding fiber in there to increase the bulk of your stevia blend. All right. Okay, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, now we're going to discuss sugar alcohols. Now, you guys know I work for Swerve. The main ingredient we're using in Swerve is erythritol, which is a type of sugar alcohol. So I'm going to get into the specifics of these different sugar alcohols. So the few bullets at the top is kind of the similarities between all of them. So sugar alcohols are a type of carbohydrate that occur naturally in nature in fruits and vegetables. Erythritol specifically occurs in things like grapes and melons. You can also find erythritol in things like any sort of fermented food, so like kimchi, wine, all of those sort of things. Now, most of these sugar alcohols can be manufactured through natural processes. So again, erythritol, for example, we just scale up the process. It's made by fermenting the glucose from corn. So if you visit an erythritol plant, it actually looks like a beer brewery. So it's just that scaled up process of fermentation. Because, if we were to gather the erythritol and like grapes and melons in nature, it would take forever and be very expensive. So just a scaled up version of that natural process. So sugar alcohols do not actually contain sugar or alcohol. They call them sugar alcohols because their molecular structure looks like half of a sugar molecule and half of an alcohol molecule. So scientists aren't that creative. That's why they're called sugar alcohols. And then where can you find them? So typically, you know, a lot of sugar-free chewing gum will have xylitol. You may find some maltitol or sorbitol in chocolates, candies. Erythritol is in Halo Top ice cream. You can also find erythritol in Vitamin Water Zero and then some baked goods as well. So they're in the food industry, and then you can buy them as standalone sweeteners as well. And you know, some positives with sugar alcohols, they're not going to contribute to tooth decay. So great if you're trying to avoid cavities. Good for weight control because they contain less calories than sugar. But also, you know, something kind of controversial about sugar alcohols is a lot of times people are like, oh, you know, anything that ends in a tol, that might give me tummy issues. And that's true. Some sugar alcohols do cause digestive discomfort. But we're going to take a closer look at each of these and I really want to point out the differences because sugar alcohols are oftentimes lumped together, but they all have different characteristics. So if you look at the calorie levels of each, erythritol is actually 0 calories, and then the other three do contribute some calories. For perspective, sugar is about 4 calories per gram, and the other sugar alcohols here are about half the amount of calories of sugar, but they're still going to give you some calories there. So important to note if you're, you know, using these if you're looking to lose a little weight. Blood sugar response. So erythritol is completely non-glycemic. It does not affect blood sugar at all. Same story with xylitol and sorbitol, but maltitol will have a little bit of an effect on your blood sugar. So definitely important for the diabetic crowd. And if you're on the keto diet or just, you know, looking to be a little bit more carb conscious. In terms of digestive tolerance, so there is definitely a range of, you know, digestive tolerance amongst these sugar alcohols. So sorbitol is definitely like bottom of the barrel. The upper tolerance is only about 20 grams a day. And this is all coming from research studies studying the digestive tolerance of all of these sugar alcohols. So 20 grams a day is not a lot at all. If, you know, we think back to those previous slides, you know, it's going to be like a tablespoon of sugar. It's really not that much at all. When you look at maltitol and xylitol, they're a little bit higher, about 50 grams a day is the upper tolerance. And then erythritol, you can have up to 80 grams a day with no side effects at all. That's for normal, healthy adults. So really, it's not an issue with most people. The digestive tolerance of erythritol. This is why we use erythritol and Swerve. So again, everyone's going to be a little bit different on, you know, their tolerance and their own microbiome, but for the most part, yeah, erythritol is going to be the best bet when it comes to digestive tolerance with sugar alcohols. And then if you look at their sweetness levels compared to sugar, you can see they're all a little bit different there. Erythritol is only 70% as sweet as sugar. So we have some prebiotic fibers and natural flavor in Swerve also to enhance the sweetness. And then we also have xylitol that's just as sweet as sugar. And then maltitol and sorbitol are a little bit less sweet than sugar as well. And then one thing that's really important to point out, you know, sugar alcohols are fine. We get the question all the time. Is this safe for kids, pregnant, breastfeeding women? Yes, totally safe for them. You know, you may want to start with like lower amounts for kids because they have smaller bodies and may not be able to tolerate as much. But one thing you really need to be careful of is if you have a dog, xylitol is toxic to dogs. So you have to be super, super careful. Don't let them get into your gum or your xylitol sweetened peanut butter. Just be really careful about that if you have a dog at home. All right, I'm going to pause for questions. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I know. I'm sorry, it's hard to read. Well, I will have all of these slides available after the chat. So, and we also have some really helpful handouts that's going to be available on my speaker page after the chat. So, Trisha, you'll be able to get this information. Is erythritol safe for someone on the low, I'm assuming you mean low FODMAP diet. Yes, Joyce. Okay. So erythritol actually is the only sugar alcohol that they say is okay for low FODMAP. It definitely, you know, discuss this with your healthcare provider or dietitian and see if you want to try to introduce it, monitor your symptoms afterwards. But typically, yes, it's okay for low FODMAP. let's see. If someone has digestive issues with xylitol and maltitol, are they likely to have those issues with erythritol? They are likely not, because erythritol has that higher digestive tolerance, more so than the other sugar alcohols. So if you have issues with those, I would definitely try erythritol or Swerve, and see if you're good with that. Okay. Will any of the sugar alternatives disrupt hormone levels? I would say probably no, because they don't contain sugar, and it's the sugar and the insulin. Insulin is actually a hormone, so obviously when you have a rise in your blood sugar from eating sugar, you're going to have an increase in insulin as well. And we know over time, elevated blood sugar is going to negatively affect your hormones. So with these sugar substitutes, it's actually, a really great way. If you have hormone imbalances, you definitely want to look into some of these substitutes and see if they're a good option for you. Okay, stevia gives my family migraines. Would I expect the same with Swerve ingredients? I don't think so. Typically not. We get a lot of feedback from our customers saying that I get migraines from stevia or, some other sweetener. They're different ingredients. Swerve is erythritol and prebiotic fibers and natural flavors. Stevia comes specifically from that stevia plant. So yeah, I would say definitely try Swerve. Try one of the other, sweeteners we're going to talk about today and see if that's a better fit for you. And yes, we will have these PowerPoint slides available after the chat. So don't worry if you're having trouble seeing these. We're going to have everything available to you afterwards. Okay, guys, I'm going to move on. Just again, this is kind of talking about the digestive tolerance, because this is, kind of hard for some people to kind of get. They're like, oh, well, all these are sugar alcohols. Wouldn't they all affect me similarly? And the answer is no. And it all comes down to that molecular size of these different sugar alcohols. So when you're looking at erythritol, it actually is a much smaller molecular size than these other different sugar alcohols. So they are all absorbed in the small intestine and then move to the colon. But with erythritol, since it's such a small molecular size, it moves very quickly through the colon and then is excreted as urine. Whereas these other sugar alcohols, they tend to kind of hang out in your large intestine, and they may cause gas and bloating. We have seen research that say they're actually fermented in the colon, so that's what's kind of causing that gas. And then since they're just kind of hanging out, fermenting may cause some fluid to be pulled into the urine, which may cause diarrhea. So not to get too scientific-y, but it's really important to understand how they're absorbed in order to kind of realize, okay, yeah, I get how erythritol wouldn't cause these same issues as the other sweeteners. Okay, now these are some kind of newer, they're considered rare sugars, mainly allulose and tagatose. You guys may have heard of allulose. It's really, becoming more and more of a popular sweetener. But typically it's a monosaccharide. It's very low calorie, and it doesn't impact blood sugar at all, or insulin levels. And the FDA just approved, before, if a product had allulose, they had to list it as sugar. But they just kind of changed that stance and said, okay, if it has allulose, you don't have to count it as sugar because it doesn't have, the same calories. It doesn't impact blood sugar in the same way that sugar does. So it's very similar to erythritol. Actually, it's 70% as sweet as sugar. You can scale up the process by fermenting the glucose from corn to create allulose. So very similar to erythritol. I like it as a sweetener. I think we'll see more and more of it. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for this. The only thing you may want to be aware of is it may have some digestive issues associated with it. We don't really know. There's not a ton of research on that right now. So it's kind of like a wait and see. It's kind of newer. Tagatose also is a monosaccharide. Again, very low calorie, doesn't impact blood sugar, insulin levels. 90% is sweet as sugar, and it's made from lactose. So both of these rare sugars, and the reason they're called rare sugars is they're only found in a few different foods like figs and wheat. It's not, widely available. So that's why they have that kind of odd title. But there is some research out there saying that they may be helpful in lowering blood sugar levels and promoting fat loss, which is exciting and promising. But again, it's kind of new. We don't have a ton of research on these yet. So just something to be aware of if you're exploring the world of sugar substitutes. Okay, I'm going to check the chat again. Is there corn in Swerve? Swerve is made by fermenting the glucose from corn. So once it undergoes that fermentation process, there is no actual corn proteins in Swerve. So we actually have people with corn allergies that can consume Swerve with no issues at all. Does sugar affect autoimmune diseases? Sugar absolutely is going to negatively impact someone who has autoimmune diseases. You know, like we talked about before, sugar is going to be a contributor to all these like negative symptoms, negative outcomes in all of these different autoimmune diseases and, you know, diabetes and heart disease. So definitely you want to be watching your sugar and keeping your sugar intake low if you have any of those issues. All right, so I'm gluten intolerant and finding not tolerating some fruits like bananas and pineapples. Is this common and due to the fruit sugars? There is going to be no gluten in the bananas and pineapples. It could be, you know, you may have a little bit of a FODMAP issue. It could be those it could be fructose that you're a little bit intolerant to. So I would definitely discuss that with your healthcare provider and see if there's maybe a little bit more insight there. But yeah, right off the bat, it may be the types of sugars of fructose that you have a little bit of issues digesting. Did you say that the rare sugars are found in fig and wheat? Yes, so these allulose and tagatose, they're derived in nature. So in the same way that like erythritol is found in grapes and melons in nature, allulose, tagatose, these are found in things like fig and wheat. So that's why they're called the rare sugars. All right, I'm going to continue on. So now we are talking about unrefined sweeteners. So y'all, I have to say this is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine because sometimes I'll come across recipes and it'll say refined sugar-free. And that implies like, oh, this is so much of a healthier dessert. Look, it has honey in it. It's good for me. But y'all, these unrefined sweeteners still contain sugar. Cup for cup, ounce for ounce, all of these sweeteners, honey, coconut sugar, agave, molasses, maple syrup, they all have the same amount of calories and sugar per gram, per cup, whatever, as regular white refined cane sugar. So just be aware, just because a recipe has honey in it or just because it's an unrefined sweetener, it doesn't mean that it's better for you. And you know, it still needs to be limited in our diets on a day-to-day basis. Now, I will say that coconut sugar, you know, out of all these is probably your, I guess, least bad, I'll say, because it doesn't have as much of a glycemic impact as regular sugar. So remember, we were looking at our blood sugar levels earlier in that chart. Coconut sugar is not going to cause as quick of a blood sugar spike as like a white refined sugar. So that's why it's better. But again, it still has the same amount of calories and sugar as as normal sugar. So don't be fooled by, you know, marketing claims or anything like that saying that this is, you know, a really healthy sweetener. Honey has been shown to have some antimicrobial, and then like if you have allergies, if you get local honey, you may get a little bit of allergy relief by using honey like a teaspoon in your tea or something like that. So, you know, I'm fine with that as long as you're not going over that like 25 grams a day recommendation. You know, any of these are fine, but you gotta use moderation with these. They're still sugar. They're still going to impact your blood sugar, and if you have too much of them over time, you're still going to get those same negative health effects. Okay, I'm going to pause for questions again. I see we have some coming on. Yeah, guys, so Joanna, we have some really great resources on the speaker page. I have a cheat sheet, a sweetener cheat sheet on our speaker page. We also have a sweetener conversion chart. So this sweetener conversion chart is really great. If, you know, your recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, you can go down the chart and all these sweeteners are listed and it'll tell you how much to use if you are trying to use an alternative sweetener in your recipe. And then also we'll have these slides available at the end of the presentation. So no worries there. Okay. I have Hashimoto's. Unrefined sweeteners are supposedly better for me as regular white sugar. Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying before. They could be a little bit better because they have a little bit of vitamins and minerals. Something like coconut sugar isn't going to cause as much of a blood sugar spike, but again, they still all contain sugar. Uh, yeah, I mean, I still think these need to be used in moderation. As long as you're under that, 25 grams a day. Obviously, if you want to use these like more unrefined sweeteners in place of white sugar, it's going to be a better option. But you still got to use moderation with these sweeteners. Have you heard of mesquite syrup? That's maybe ringing a bell. It's based on the pod from the mesquite tree. Yeah, it kind of sounds similar to molasses to me. Yeah, again, if it still has the same amount of sugar as something like molasses or something like that, it definitely can give you some more vitamins, minerals. That's definitely the case with like molasses and maple syrup. You get some minerals from those since they come from these trees. But again, you still got to use moderation. Okay. We don't for Swerve, we don't have any liquid versions right now, but maybe in the future, so stay tuned. Does that mean that allulose and tagatose are not good for gluten-free diets? Oh, that's a great question because some come from wheat. Ingrid, I will have to look into that. You can schedule a private chat with me and we can talk about that a little bit more. I'm not sure about that, so I'll have to look that up for you. Okay. Yes, absolutely moderation. I'm glad you agree, Marianne. Okay, cool. All right, y'all. I'm going to keep going with the slides. We're going to talk about Swerve now. Obviously, you guys know that I work for Swerve. I just want to give you the rundown and kind of give you more information about Swerve. So it is a great tasting natural sugar replacement. Swerve measures cup for cup, just like sugar. So it's excellent for baking and cooking. No bitter aftertaste, very little digestive discomfort. Again, we discussed erythritol, very unlikely to cause any sort of digestive or tummy issues whenever you're baking with it. Again, we're using erythritol. We are non-GMO verified, so no GMOs in any of our products, no artificial sweeteners, no preservatives, no artificial flavors or anything like that. We're just all natural ingredients in all of our sweeteners and bake mixes. Swerve is non-glycemic, so it does not affect blood sugar at all. Safe for those with diabetes. It's great for anybody on the keto diet, on a low-carb diet, or just anyone that's really just trying to bake a little bit healthier. So we have the oligosaccharides, those are the prebiotic fibers in Swerve. That's what really makes it a very special option for baking and cooking because you actually get that true browning and caramelization in your baked goods that gives you that beautiful golden crust. So yes, it's a great sweetener if you are looking to bake and cook, which, is difficult to say for some of the other ones that we discussed today. So taking a deeper dive into our ingredients, erythritol is made by fermenting the glucose from corn. So there's a natural microorganism called Monalea polynesis. It's a yeast, and it actually ferments the sugar that is found in corn. And then the byproduct of that fermentation process is erythritol. So this occurs in nature on a very small level, but we just scale it up, like I said before, in big brewery tanks, just in the same way that beer is fermented. Erythritol naturally occurs in many fruits and vegetables. It is generally recognized as safe by the FDA, and it's a sugar alcohol that does not affect blood sugar. We kind of have talked about a lot of this before. And then those prebiotic fibers, it's a type of fiber called oligosaccharides. Fructooligosaccharides is the specific type. And these come from fruit and vegetable sources, the main one being chicory, and they can also help stimulate beneficial bacteria in the gut. So it's that good fiber for those good bacteria that live in our microbiome. And this is just a little bit of a depiction on how it's made. So we start with the sugar from corn, let that ferment, add those enzymes and the yeast to ferment it itself, and then blend it all up. So that is just a little depiction of how Swerve is made. And these are all of our different products. So we have our different sweeteners. We've got granular confectioners and brown Swerve. We even have some packets to carry along, if you want to add it to your coffee or your tea. And then we have a line of gluten-free bake mixes as well. I don't know if you guys know about these. They're kind of our newer products, and brownie is our newest. It just came out this past summer, and they are absolutely delicious. You guys should definitely check these out. All of this information is on our exhibitor page, so please stop by our booth if you haven't already. But we've got all of our different products and all the details on each of those there. We also are doing a bunch of different giveaways and demos and our live chat all throughout the weekend. So be sure to stop by our booth. We have a lot of great information in there. And then, like I said before, these slides are going to be available on my speaker page. And then we'll also have a couple helpful resources. And then in our booth as well, we will have those resources and a couple other handouts to go along with those too. All right, so let's take a look at the chat again. Okay, can I use this in iced tea? Yes, you can use Swerve in iced tea. I would recommend actually confectioners for iced tea because it's harder for the granular to dissolve as quickly in those iced beverages. But confectioners is really great if you just want to do a quick blend in like an iced drink. You can do that. And then I also love to make a simple syrup with either confectioners or granular, both work. But I just make a simple syrup. It's equal parts, 1 cup water, 1 cup Swerve, and I just keep that in a little glass bottle. And you can put it in iced tea and iced coffee. You can use it in cocktails. Which, by the way, I'm going to be hosting a happy hour tonight at 5 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to be making margaritas with Swerve and talking about sugar-free infusions and sugar-free cocktails. So definitely stop by if you are interested in a little happy hour this evening. But yes, you can absolutely use Swerve and iced tea and, even make a simple syrup. That's my favorite way to add it to beverages. I have a corn allergy. Is there corn product left in Swerve? No. So this is a great question. But Swerve is made by fermenting the sugar from corn. So, if the corn proteins are what you're allergic to, they're really, we're just extracting the sugar from the corn as a substrate to create Swerve. And then after the fermentation process, it basically becomes a new food. Erythritol is a completely new food. It does not contain any corn proteins. So most people that have a corn allergy can have Swerve and it's completely fine. Definitely check with your healthcare provider, make sure, they give you the green light for it. But we have gotten loads of people that tell us, yeah, I have a corn allergy, but I'm fine with Swerve. Okay, is Swerve a 1-to-1? Yes, Swerve is a 1-to-1 sugar replacement. You can, and I'm actually going to turn my camera back on so I can say hi again to everyone. But yes, Swerve is a 1-to-1 sugar replacement. You can, if the recipe calls for a half a cup of sugar, you would just use a half a cup of Swerve. So it's a super simple swap. This is our granular Swerve right here. It's just like a granulated sugar, free flowing, all of that good stuff. So very easy to substitute in your recipes. You'll save a ton of calories, a ton of carbs, all that good stuff. And Brenda just asked, does Swerve offer samples? Yes, we do. So I don't know if we have a sample sign up on our exhibitor page, but if you visit our exhibitor page in the Nourished show, we have our email address there. So if you just email sweetie@swervesweet.com, and that email address is on the page as well, and just say, hey, I'm interested in getting some samples, we'll just mail you some. Okay. Are there any effects on the kidneys? As you stated, it was excreted in the urine. No, as far as we know, there's no effect on the kidneys with Swerve. We have patients, with diabetes, with dialysis that are on dialysis that use Swerve and have no issues at all. So there's no effect. All right. Love your baking mixes. Is there ever going to be a biscuit one? Ooh, I don't know. We may have to look into that. I can tell you we don't have any plans for it right now, but that's a great suggestion, and I will certainly share that with the team. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, you can type the email address here and we will see it. Oh, yes, you can absolutely do that. Of course, Liz, thank you. Okay, so sweetie at swervesweet.com. Okay, guys, that is the email address where you can, if you want samples of Swerve, just shoot us a note and say, hey, I listened to Amy's talk. I'd love to try some samples of Swerve. And yes, please do stop by our booth. We are doing giveaways all weekend long. We're giving away an air fryer. We're giving away a really cool pan, a non-stick pan that's very trendy these days. What else? We are giving away a KitchenAid mixer. That is the big one for the weekend. So definitely stop by our booth, sign up for all those giveaways. And then if you join our live chat, we're also giving away free t-shirts. So just pop in the live chat. We'll send you a link to sign up for that free t-shirt. Yeah, so it's gonna be great. We have lots of different prizes. Okay, when will Swerve be available in larger quantities? We love Swerve, and it's hard to constantly have to pick up the smaller bags. I know. Okay, so just for perspective, this is a 12-ounce bag. So I mean, not a ton. So I feel your pain. So Crystal, we actually have Swerve available in 3-pound bags on Amazon. It is available in some club stores as well, but it depends on where you are. So let me send a few links right now. I'm going to send you guys the link to the larger bags for the 3-pound bags of Swerve. I'm going to put that in the chat. Just hold 1 second. And then let's see. Okay. We actually have a 24-ounce bag as well. So if the 3 pounds is a little bit too much for you, we have a 24-ounce bag, and that is going to be on Amazon as well. So let me go to the Swerve page on Amazon. Visit the Swerve store. Okay, here we go. Okay. Swerve granular. Okay, 48 ounce. Here we go. Here's the big boy. All right, I'm coming with the link right now. Yeah, so the 24-ounce bag, if you have a Sprouts near you, you can find Swerve. You can find that bag there. And then I'm also going to send our store locator. We also have this available on our exhibitor page, but I'm just going to show you guys the store locator here, and you can find what products are available at what retailers near you. Okay, so we had Sandy said, "What if you're allergic to corn?" So yeah, I mean, if you have a corn allergy, typically Swerve is not an issue. It is made by fermenting the sugar from corn, and then after that fermentation process, it becomes a new food. There are no corn proteins present in Swerve or erythritol, so typically it's not an issue at all. Like I said, definitely check with your healthcare provider. Make sure they're okay with that, but plenty of people have corn allergies or intolerances and then have no issues with Swerve. All right, guys. Well, last call for any questions. It looks like, we're right at the 12 mark here, a little bit over. I know we have until 12:15, so if you have any other questions, now is your final opportunity. But again, visit the Swerve booth. We are giving away free t-shirts if you visit our live chat. I will be in the live chat this afternoon doing a sugar-free margarita, so definitely tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to have a happy hour with you guys. We're giving away free t-shirts if you jump in that live chat, so make sure you do that. And then, again, we have amazing giveaways all weekend long. I think we have about 6 prizes left. One is a KitchenAid mixer, which I personally would love to win. So make sure you sign up for all that good stuff. Sign up for our newsletter. We send a lot of amazing recipes. And if you haven't visited our website, make sure to do that too, because we have almost 500 recipes on our website at this point. So lots of great information there. Lots of great information on our blogs. We try to, really put out some great educational information. It's one of the main things I do at Swerve. And it's a lot of fun because we guys want you to be, happy, confident bakers and, know what good options are out there for you. Okay, what time is the live chat? Carol, we will have someone in the live chat all throughout the day, but specifically we are doing some demos. Let me see. I'm going to check our schedule real quick. So I am going to be doing the margarita demo at 5 p.m. Central Time today, so that'll be 6 p.m. Eastern. We also are going to be doing some other demos. Let me see. We are going to be doing some baking tips at 3 p.m. Central Time. Actually, sorry, that was yesterday. Wait. Okay, got it. Okay, so 1 p.m. Central Time, we will have some, I think, a cupcake decorating class, which is very fun. We'll be doing some cupcake decorating, some baking tips, all of that good stuff. So that'll be 1 p.m. Central Time today. So in 1 hour, Bree is going to be doing that from our team. And then at 3 p.m. Central, we're going to be doing some baking tips. So a bunch of baking tips on how to bake with Swerve, gluten-free baking, all of that good stuff. So join in. That'll be 2 hours from now. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 hours from now, 3 p.m. Central. And then 5 p.m. Central Time, I will be doing the margarita, sugar-free margarita demo. Okay, we got a few more questions. If I am pre-diabetic, which of your products would you recommend? Any of them. All of them are really great if you are pre-diabetic, watching your blood sugar. All of our sweeteners are completely non-glycemic. They do not affect blood sugar at all. And then the bake mixes all have very low net carb counts. So anywhere from 3 grams net carbs per serving to 11 net carbs per serving. So the cakes, the chocolate cake mix and vanilla cake mix, those are the lowest net carbs. I would recommend starting with those. They're so delicious. Again, use that store locator to find where you can purchase them at grocery stores, and then they're available on Amazon too. Do you have any tree nuts in your products? Oh, Trisha, all of our bake mixes contain tree nuts. They're made with almond and coconut flour, so that's not going to be a good fit for you if you're allergic to those. But the sweeteners you are fine with. The sweeteners do not have any tree nuts. Hi, Amy. This session will end in 1 minute. Okay, guys. It looks like we need to wrap up, but thank you so much for joining in. And again, stop by our booth. We're going to have a lot of really great things happening all weekend. Okay, we did have one more question. Does Swerve work like sugar in bread when you use it for the yeast? No, it does not, because it does not contain any sugar to feed that yeast. So if you're making a yeast bread, you can still use Swerve, but you need about a 1/4 cup of sugar in that recipe to activate the yeast. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I had so much fun. Thank you for all your wonderful questions. Is this the email we asked you for the PowerPoint? I am going to have these PowerPoint slides on my speaker page. So if you go back to the speaker page on the Nourished website, you'll be able to get all of these slides on that page, okay? All right, guys, I'm going to end the presentation. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for all of your wonderful questions.